The topic of this week is traditional farming techniques, and the first lesson is crop production techniques. I am Olivera Nikolic, and I am full professor at Agroheritage University, Faculty of Ecological Agriculture in Sremska Kamenica, and now I am going to teach the lesson named The Role of Traditional Agricultural Methods in Contemporary Crop Production and Agroheritage Maintenance. I suppose everyone knows that industrial agriculture really has had great success in producing abundant low-cost food. World hunger has been declining for decades, and the food production per capita has increased sharply since the 1960s. But this success has come with costs that raise questions about the sustainability and unintended effects of global rationalization of food production and made serious risks in terms of ecology, health, safety of food, and human health, biodiversity, but social costs are not negligible too and include a growing rural-urban divide, a worldwide obesity epidemic, and antibiotic resistance. The urgent need for a more sustainable and ecological approach has produced many innovative ideas, among them agricultural reforms and the food production implementing sustainable practice evolving to food sovereignty. Organic agriculture, for example, and similar agricultural systems are actually answers on risks of contemporary agriculture and awareness and needs of global consumers when it comes to food. The importance of old traditional agricultural practice and methods in such systems and just such circumstances have been globally recognized and accepted. Hence, in 2002, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations set up the globally important agricultural heritage systems to raise national and international awareness about these unique agricultural practices and landscapes, and to help safeguard the social, cultural, economic, and environmental goods and services this provides to family farmers, producers, and the local communities. Importance on conservation and apply traditional inherited agricultural practice and methods is especially seen in terms of biodiversity keeping, production high quality food, sustainable soil use, but in terms of promoting local landscapes, tourist, gastronomy, and cultural offer of rural areas especially. Traditional agriculture can be defined as a style of food production and farming that involves the intensive use of indigenous knowledge, land use, traditional tools, natural resources, organic fertilizer, and cultural beliefs of the farmers. Traditional soil management does not depend on manufactured inorganic fertilizer inputs. It is based on organic matters, reduced soil preparation, use of natural biological cycles and activities in soil, taking care about soil quality and revitalization. Some of important traditional farming methods that could take place in contemporary agricultural systems are agroforestry, then crop rotation, intercropping, polyculture, water harvesting, etc. That methods seem to be primitive, but applied in combination with modern knowledge helps in ecological systems and local biodiversity being prerequisite for efficient and sustainable farming. New methods are constantly being developed using these traditional methods with many advantages that can be seen not only for the farmers, but also the environment and for food security, quality of food, and soil improves. This preservation is very important because proved quite beneficial in both urban and rural areas. Agroforestry is one of that mentioned traditional agricultural methods. Agroforestry is a collective name for land use systems and technologies where woody perennials, trees, shrubs, palms, bamboos, etc., are deliberately used on the same land management units as agricultural crops and/or animals in some form of spatial arrangement or temporal sequence. In agroforestry systems, there are both ecological and economical interactions between the different components. Agroforestry can also be defined as a dynamic, ecologically based nature resource management system that, through the integration of trees on farms and in the agricultural landscape, diversifies and sustains production for increased social, economic, and environmental benefits for land users at all levels. In particular, agroforestry is crucial to smallholder farmers and other rural people because it can enhance their food supply, income, and health. Agroforestry systems are multifunctional systems that can provide a wide range of economic, sociocultural, and environmental benefits. There are three main types of agroforestry systems. Agri-silvicultural systems are a combination of crops and trees, such as alley cropping or home gardens. Next, silvopastoral systems combine forestry and grazing of domesticated animals on pastures, rangelands, or on farm. And three elements, namely trees, animals, and crops, can be integrated in what are called agro-silvopastoral systems and are illustrated by home gardens involving animals as well as scattered trees and croplands used for grazing after harvests. Because agroforestry integrates multiple natural components and is at the crossroads of tradition and modernity, it necessarily brings together people from diverse fields of knowledge, agronomists, foresters, economists, soil analysts, and many more. This diversity of disciplines is certainly a strength, but its complexity also represents a challenge, notably in terms of coordination and communication. This slide presents crop rotation. Crop rotation is one very old traditional agricultural method and involves planting a sequence of different kinds of crops in a location over a number of a season. Rotating crops helps maintain or improve soil health and maintain or increase the productivity of the farm over time. Different plants have different nutritional needs and are susceptible to different pathogens and pests. If a farmer plants the exact same crop in the same place every year, as is common in conventional farming, he continually draws the same nutrients out of the soil. Pests and diseases happily make themselves a permanent home as their preferred food source is guaranteed. With monocultures like this, increasing levels of chemical fertilizers and pesticides become necessary to keep yields high while keeping bugs and disease at bay. Crop rotation helps return nutrients to the soil without synthetic inputs. The practice also works to interrupt pests and disease cycles, improve soil health by increasing biomass from different crops, root structures, and increase biodiversity on the farm. Life in the soil thrives on variety, and beneficial insects and pollinators are attracted to the variety above ground too. The examples for crop rotation in Serbia in farming are corn and wheat, involving whenever possible soybeans, sunflower, sugar beet, some of legumes, and root and hodged plants. There is intensive crop rotation in vegetables, considering 3 plot systems with pre-culture, usually some early spring or winter varieties, such as lettuce, spinach, radish, peas, early potatoes, spring onions, the main crop, with a long vegetation like peppers, cabbage, onions, and subsequent crop grown after the main crop, lettuce, spinach, spring onions, and etc. The cultivation of more than one crop in the same space at the same time is known as intercropping. Row intercropping is working this arrangement with at least one of the components being planted in rows. Strip intercropping is a more industrialized version with rows of individual crops big enough to be harvested with machinery. Mixed intercropping is more like what we imagine as a guild in which plants are bunched together more naturally, but in purposeful ways. Relay intercropping is when the plants being intercropped are timed so that they are planted as the others are between flowering and harvesting. These are the basic 4 methods commonly employed. Sometimes they involve annual grains and vegetables, such as the mixed intercropping classic of corn, beans, and squash. Sometimes there are perennial species with annual crops grown amongst them, say perennial garlic and basil with annual tomatoes. Perennials, for example, also work well with other perennials. Sometimes this work in organized rows, other times in other patterns, but the main thought is to make thoughtful combinations. In essence, these are all forms of companion planting in which one plant provides some useful components for another. The technique can be small in scale, something seen in a home garden, but strip cropping is also becoming more common for progressive industrial models. Anyhow, the choice of plant kind seems very important for success of this method. Limits can be botanical affiliation and morphological and other characteristics. For example, tomatoes, eggplants, and potatoes are all from the nightshade family, so they don't work well for intercropping. For one, they use similar nutrients. As well, they attract similar pests, and they're susceptible to similar disease. Intercropping with things from the same family is asking for nutrient depletion while promoting troublesome insects and illnesses through a leisure version of, though not far off from, monocropping. There are some other considerations too. With mixed intercropping, it's imperative to consider root structures such that plants don't crowd each other out beneath the surface, as well as above ground size, which could interfere with the specific sun requirements of other plants. Or, for example, considering strip intercropping, it would be very important to practice sound crop rotation within the rows in order to avoid dormant pests and diseases in the next crop, as well as, again, specific nutrient depletion in soil. The most common examples for intercropping in Serbia are maize with pumpkins, bean, millet, and pulses, then oat and other small grains with fodder peas and legumes and grass, etc. Previous slide and just this now present 4 basic 4 types of intercropping, and you can watch at this and analyze their design. One of the very popular traditional agricultural methods and very old is polyculture. Polyculture may sound like a new form of sustainable cultivation, but polyculture and all that it entails has been around for thousands of years. This is a traditionally tested method for growing several plant species together on the same piece of land. It joins people and the environment together by using mutually beneficial cultivation methods. With this system, there is less waste, less soil damage, and fewer problems with pests and diseases. Best of all, there is less cost to use serious chemical controls, which is shown to damage wildlife, biodiversity, and ecosystems, not to mention our own health and well-being. Polyculture farming techniques were common practice throughout much of the world up until 1950s. In fact, this mixed planting technique is still widely used throughout South America, Eastern Asia, Africa, and regions of Himalayas. Furthermore, it's estimated that currently 15 to 20% of the world's agriculture still relies on these traditional polyculture growing systems and represents opposite of monoculture. Some of polyculture advantages are food security, waste reduce, maximum utilization of all resources, self-sufficient, sustainable environments, better pests and weed management, etc. Implementation of this method requires wider knowledge of many different plant groups and their individual needs and a lot of time to plan properly. Different species have different nutritional needs, which could make feeding complicated, and plant grow and harvest are more difficult than one crop on a large scale. This slide presents water harvesting as one of the traditional agricultural method, but not only agricultural, and you will see it during the rest of this teaching. Water harvesting is just very important method and presents inducing, collecting, storing, and conserving local surface runoff for agricultural productions, but other purposes too, in household, for example, for laundry, car, and dishes wash. Uncontrolled water use, drought, rise of land pressure lead to water loss and problems in agriculture, but serious consequences in whole human population. While irrigation may be the most obvious response to drought, it has proved costly and can only benefit a fortunate few. There is a now increasing interest in the low-cost alternative generally referred to as water harvesting. Various forms of rainwater harvesting have been used traditionally throughout the centuries. Some of the earliest agriculture in the Middle East was based on techniques such as diversion of body flow, spade flow from normally dry water courses onto agricultural fields. The potential of water harvesting for improved crop production received great attention in the 1970s and 1980s. This was due to the widespread droughts in Africa, which left a trail of crop failures and a serious threat to human and livestock life. Consequently, a number of water harvesting projects were set up in sub-Saharan Africa. However, few of the projects have succeeded in combining technical efficiency with low cost and acceptability of the local farmers. Anyway, the application of innovative technologies and the improvement of indigenous ones should therefore include management of the water sources to ensure sustainability and to safeguard the sources against pollution. Two basic ways of water harvesting are surface runoff and rooftop rainwater harvesting. Excuse me. Added techniques depend on distance between catchment area and the runoff utilization area called cropped basin. Traditional crop varieties, generally known as land races, but also called farmer varieties, local varieties, or primitive varieties, have been continuously maintained by people within their local biological, cultural, and socioeconomic context. In the past, at each harvest, farmers used to save a proportion of seed of their crops for sowing and cultivation, and these cycles had been repeated for millennia. As environments, as well as the people who live within them, are different in different agricultural areas, many land races of a crop were developed within a certain region after domestication or introduction. In addition, farmers tended to suit the intra-farm multiple eco-agricultural conditions by growing a diverse range of land races per crop. Farmers selected different types characterized by different ripening times, destination uses, local taste preferences, winter hardiness, and other characteristics, so that more than one land race was often developed on their farms. Among and within land race, diversity had been the key to agriculture's food security for generations. The mix of land race diversity has allowed and still allows farmers to service a diversity of needs and proposes and obtain a harvest whether the year is dry or wet, or whether there is a pest or disease attack, as some genotypes will be affected each year, but not all of them. Conservation of land races could be a powerful tool for prevent genetic erosion because they are a major source of important and desirable genes in terms of contemporary selection and breeding. Planting land races contribute biodiversity, agriculture sustainability, eco-friendly practices, and food safety. Autochthon plant species show great resistance to pathogens and other stress factors, but great adaptation to climatic and soil conditions of a particular area, reducing so use of agrochemicals in practice. Involving products derived from land races in tourist and gastronomy local offer improve attractiveness of rural areas too. Unfortunately, it is noticed land races loss in Europe as well all over the world. Generally, reasons for it are the decrease of the rural population and the dying of the older population that kept those seeds, ignorance of the characteristics and non-recognition of such seed and species. This slide presents some kind of traditional plant varieties in Serbia. You can see some species of vegetables, small grains. You can see some fruit species, pumpkins, strawberries, tomatoes, and corn, and etc. The products of these plant varieties, these autochthon plant varieties, are very delicious and very popular, especially nowadays in the context of modern human diet regimes. Biodiversity is a very important aspect of agricultural heritage and very important aspect for whole life on planet, on Earth. Biodiversity of agricultural fields, unfortunately, today is very small. The data indicate that more than 1 billion hectares in the world are cultivated only about 70 species of plants. Loss of floral resources is considered to be one of the main drivers of bee decline, and provisioning of adequate floral resources, pollen and nectar, in accordingly considered decisive for successful habitat management for both wild and managed bees. Thus, it is crucial to inform management with knowledge on which floral resource plant species are important to sustain different bee target groups. That is, first, wild crop pollinators, second, managed honeybees, and third, rare bee species, and to what extent these resources are complementary of overlapping among target groups. Enhancing plant diversity in agricultural landscapes promotes both rare bees and dominant crop pollinating bees through complementary increase in key floral resources. Besides that, floral, aromatic, and medicinal species are important in agriculture traditionally, but especially nowadays, as element of agroheritage involved in sustainable production model. The gardens of our grandmothers are actual examples of its use and base for designing contemporary sustainable garden. The role of that flower strips is primarily to be barrier, attract insects, pests, aphids by smell and colors, and consequently reduce their attack on cultivated plants. The most commonly used are marigold, velvet, lavender, basil, rosemary, sage, etc. Some of that species, by root secretions, purify the soil and act sanitary, like marigold and velvet. The most of that species are used for herbal preparations, like tea solutions and similar, but are interested as components of compost and for green manure. The most commonly used are walnut, nettle, yarrow, chamomile, etc. In aim to protect cultivated plants and manage garden by ecological friendly way, uses some traditional methods like soda and wood ash as is element of Agroheritage too, and very present in organic gardens nowadays. Use of organic fertilizer is one of basic rules of organic agriculture, but method very known through our agriculture tradition. The main organic fertilizer is manure, but green manure and compost are very popular now too. Use of organic matter and plant, as well as all others biodegradable residues, is a way to ensure the circulation of matter on the property that is prerequisite for its sustainability. Effects that matters on soil are very positive and long-term. Land improvement and revitalization improvement to its structure and biological activity and providing sufficient amounts of humus. At the same time, correct use of organic matters does not leave harmful effects on the environment and health safety of the product. So, correct preparation of organic matters is very important. Traditional methods are improved owing to modern knowledge in biology, microbiology, ecology, and other science disciplines. These procedures today are strictly defined and must be properly implemented in order for the quality of the final products to be satisfactory and for the use to have the desired effects. At the end, it is important to say that use of biodegradable residues in agriculture nowadays, more than ever, has great ecological importance because of reducing the amount of waste in landfills. So, importance of this method that can also be considered as element of agroheritage becomes greater. On the basis of this, it is not difficult to conclude that many methods carried out during the past and upgraded with modern knowledge contribute to sustainability, environmental friendliness, and efficiency of modern agriculture. Their importance is, however, more great. Preservation of heritage elements is important for the overall national identity and strengthening the value system. It can be a strong basis for the economic development of an area. The study of the elements is therefore manifold, significant, and necessary. Thank you.